And live from our studios here in Accra, you're watching Connect Africa with me, Blessed Sogan. Tonight, our focus is on Ivory Coast, where mass protests have erupted in the capital Abidjan over the ban on some opposition political parties, reportedly by the president and four-time runner, Alassane Ouattara.
This march is a peaceful march where the Ivorians ask the power in place to raise the name of President Ivorian, to raise the name of President Tian, and also to resume the registration.
Stay with us. We have the latest from you from Abidjan, but we'll get into the development shortly. First, we have news from DRC, where many view the recent reshuffle as a missed opportunity for genuine national renewal amidst ongoing peace talks with the M23 group in Doha and Washington.
We were expecting a single government, a national union government, as he promised. But that has not happened, just as the agreed confederation was not respected.
More coming your way shortly. Plus, what's been happening in Chad, where President Deby has addressed the nation days after ex-Prime Minister Masra was jailed for 20 years. The president says their hand is stretched to those who wish to join in building the country. All of this coming up, but first we give you a wrap of the major stories making the headlines across Africa. Please stay.
Chadian President Mahamat Idris Deby has defended his government, insisting on engaging in dialogue with political actors of all persuasions during his address to the nation on Monday in N'Djamena as the country celebrates 65 years of its independence. The remark came after Chad's former Prime Minister and opposition leader Success Masra was sentenced to 20 years in prison on Sunday. He was found guilty of incitement to hatred and revolt, as well as complicity to murder following deadly clashes between herders and farmers in May. Masra's arrest sparked discontent among his supporters. Before the trial, they held a demonstration outside the headquarters of Masra's party, the Transformers, claiming that the politician was arrested without any evidence. Deby also announced plans to turn his country into a regional benchmark of Central Africa in the farming sector.
Les années se succèdent et la République du Tchad compte aujourd'hui 65 ans d'indépendance. 6 décennies et demie de marche.
In the political field and with the creation of the new framework for political consultation, we are maintaining dialogue with political actors of all persuasions. Our hand is stretched to those of our compatriots who wish to join us in building together the Chad of tomorrow. We bundle agriculture and livestock farming, the sustainable pillars of our economy. With regard to livestock farming, we will gradually move towards an industrial model. We will offer innovative solutions, a worrying regional security context marked by war in our immediate vicinity. Our country is committed to ensuring the security of its people and integrity of its territory through the dedication of our defense and security forces.
Of the new 53 members to Minwa II government was met with frustration and disappointment in South Kivu's capital, Bukavu, where many view the reshuffle as a missed opportunity for genuine national renewal amid ongoing peace talks with the M23 group in Doha and Washington. Residents and political analysts alike decried the return of familiar faces and the absence of key opposition representatives, fearing the cabinet would do little to address the deep-rooted conflict and instability. Opposition communicator Albert Matabaro denounced President Felix Tshisekedi's decision of reappointing 90% of his former ministers.
Perhaps he wanted to honor his allies because Umar is not inclined to form our government. We were expecting a single government, a national union government, as he promised. But that has not happened, just as the agreed confederation was not respected.
Interim President of South Kivu Civil Society, Sami Kitambala, expressed that expectations on a unified government were not met.
Je crois que c'est un gouvernement qui ne présente aucun signe de crédibilité, donc c'est un gouvernement inopportun.
Security advisors had been holding consultations here and there so we could form a true national union government. But what we got was disappointing. It was not a reshuffle. It was simply switching ministers from one portfolio to another. A few new figures were brought in, but they are mostly there to applaud the head of state. We disagree with this. The population here continues to suffer every day.
The reshuffle occurs against the backdrop of fragile peace negotiations, with M23 rebels raising questions about the government's capacity to foster lasting peace and reconciliation in eastern DR Congo.
I believe this government shows no signs of credibility. It is not appropriate for our situation. There is no one from the armed opposition. That is our biggest challenge if we truly want to end the war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Even the unarmed opposition is not represented. They have only appointed lightweight figures. If the President of the Republic were serious about our problems, the first step would have been to appoint a minister responsible for implementing the decisions made in Doha in the United Arab Emirates, and for monitoring all agreements. But there is no such position, so there's little to hope for. In the rest of the country, this government inspires no confidence. Felix Tshisekedi has reappointed 90% of his former ministers, which means we can expect the same results, embezzlement and other failings.
The Qatar-mediated DRC M23 Declaration of Principles was signed in Qatar on July 26. Before the declaration, a landmark agreement between DRC and Rwanda, brokered by the United States and Qatar, was signed in Washington on June 27. The deal calls for creation of a joint security mechanism within 30 days, the complete withdrawal of Rwandan troops within 3 months, and the launch of a regional economic plan within 90 days. The agreement follows years of violent conflict in North and South Kivu. The Democratic Republic of Congo has long accused Rwanda of supporting the M23 rebel group, an accusation that Kigali has denied.
Well, some of the stories around the continent for you there, but enough is enough. That's the rallying cry in Ivory Coast as we speak. The commercial capital Abidjan, as thousands of demonstrators took to the streets. They are now protesting the disqualification of the opposition candidates from the upcoming presidential elections, and also voicing their fierce resistance to President Alassane Ouattara's continued grip on power. Well, to set the tone for this evening's discussion, we have a wrap in the story for you.
Footage shows demonstrators flooding the city streets with Ivorian flags and signs demanding the inclusion of their candidates.
It's a national movement. We say no to authorities regain their senses and become democratic.
Protesters are demanding the reinstatement of voter registration, as well as the inclusion of former President Laurent Gbagbo, former Prime Minister Guillaume Soro, and ex-Minister Tidjane Thiam as candidates on the electoral ballot.
This march is a peaceful march where the Ivorians ask the power in place to write the name of President Laurent, to write the name of President Thiam, and also to resume the registration. The revision, therefore, allows the electoral list to allow all Ivorians who are not able to register on the list to do so. We ask through this march for an inclusive election where all the sons and daughters of Ivory Coast can participate in peace.
Protesters also rejected President Ouattara's bid for a fourth term, which he announced after amending the constitution to eliminate presidential term limits.
Cette marche est une marche pacifique.
So today I came so that foreigners do not take over my country. I am here today because the market is expensive. Ivorian schools are no longer working. Our health is at stake, and I came today so that all of us can liberate the country. Enough is enough. No to the fourth term. It is not a dictatorship. We are in a democratic country.
83-year-old Ouattara secured a third term in 2020 following a constitutional revision that resets presidential term limits. The current charter, adopted in 2016, permits him to seek re-election once more, potentially securing a fourth term in office. More than 8.7 million Ivorians have registered to vote in the presidential election scheduled for October 25. Meanwhile, tensions escalated over the exclusion of some opposition candidates, bringing back fears of past election-related violence, including the 2010 to 2011 crisis that killed over 3,000 people and the unrest that followed his third-term run in 2020.
Well, a picture of what's happening in Ivory Coast now. But I want to bring in Dr. Festus Obin with the West African Network for Peace Building. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and for joining us. Of course, the SAP region has been concerned about what's happening in Ivory Coast, especially for democratic watchers in Ghana. But establish for us, what's the basis of this, the main drivers of this tension that we're seeing in Ivory Coast now? And how would you compare this to, the past early warning signs that were happening prior to that conflict that we saw in the country?
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, so what is happening was expected, or is expected, because following the 2020 elections, the violence that ensued during the 2020 elections, when President Ouattara contested for a third time, saying that the 2016 constitutional review that was done reset his presidential term limit. And so he contested a third time in 2020, which led to a lot of violence, like you have already stated. And so we were hoping that this year he was not going to contest based on the disturbances that happened, in 2020, and also the calls on him by other ECOWAS member states for him to at least not contest for another term, just for the sake of the peace of the country. But I think from the beginning of the year, when we saw the disqualification of very prominent opposition figures that could pose a threat to him, we envisaged that he was going to contest for a fourth term. And so what is happening is actually an amalgamation of some of the happenings since the beginning of the year, when the main opposition candidate, Tijani Thiam, was disqualified based on his nationality and citizenship status. The same reason that Ouattara was also banned twice from contesting elections, because they thought he had a Burkinabe, nationality. It's the same issue that has been used to disqualify the main opposition figure. I think Gbagbo and the former Prime Minister Soro and others were also banned. So essentially, it leaves Mr. Ouattara without any strong, opposition. And that is why you see a lot of people, one, protesting for the barring of these prominent opposition figures from contesting the election, and two, also protesting against the fourth-term presidential term limit of President Ouattara. In actual fact, if you look at the 2016 constitution that they adopted, he claimed that it reset the presidential term limit. And so what it means is that he's still qualified to contest. But people have raised issues about that as a constitutional, coup. And over the years, we've also seen how the judiciary and also the electoral management body has also been used to disqualify opposition figures.
And this is bringing to the fore again a focus, a sharp one, of course, on the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and all of its protocols, relating to democracy. Is it really working within the SAP region?
Yes, so currently, one of the challenges ECOWAS has is that in the ECOWAS protocol, it talks about changes of constitution 6 months to election. But this was actually done way back before, the time of the election. So issues of sovereignty will come in, and issues of nationality laws against regional frameworks will also come in. And in situations like this, ECOWAS has to go in to build consensus among the various political parties. I mean, to see how best they can address their various needs and grievances. And if you recall, the problems that ECOWAS has today is partly also caused by what President Ouattara did in 2020 and what also happened in Togo. Its inability to stop Mr. Ouattara from contesting in 2020 actually gave the impetus for what also happened in the Sahelian countries. And currently, ECOWAS is also in a very big dilemma because already we have 3 members that have left. And so the institution is trying to rebuild and also unite its members. And this presents a major challenge for ECOWAS. But I think they can still, although I feel it is too late to stop Ouattara from running for the October election, which is just about 2 months away, they can at least engage the various political actors to build some level of consensus.
And that's where the question will come up as to who can leverage his or her influence over President Alassane Ouattara now. Of course, last week he was extending that invitation to our president to be his guest of honor at the 60th, I believe, independence celebration of the country. If that's the case, it does suggest that our president, John Mahama, could, of course, leverage his good relations, good ties, influence over President Alassane Ouattara. A good move?
Well, I mean, it's both ways. One way is that if President Mahama had gone there and this announcement had come where he's contesting for a 4th term, it would have also been a bad publicity for our president because when he came, you recall that his association with the Sahelian countries was quite praised by various actors. And he also going to Côte d'Ivoire and being the main guest of honor, and afterwards having what is happening there in relation to what people have also said about him, also trying to change the constitution to also contest for a 3rd term. I mean, it would have been a bad publicity for me, for him. But aside that, for now, I'm not too sure whether President Mahama has the leverage to convince President Ouattara from contesting. In fact, if you look at the relationship between the MPP and President Ouattara's party, it's more stronger than between the NDC and President Ouattara's party. And the person that I thought could have used his leverage to do this was President Akufo-Addo. But unfortunately, that couldn't happen in 2020. And so I doubt if President Mahama will be able to change the decision the president.
How about the sub-regional level? ECOWAS at some point, I believe in the height of course, this whole wave of coup d'etats, we had, that strong push from the community of heads of states pushing and asking for term limits. It didn't work at the time. Would it work this time around?
I'm not sure it's going to work this time around because you could see that at the time we had just 2 countries, I think Gambia and Togo, that prevented ECOWAS from having that 2-term presidential limit in its protocol. Now we have a number of countries. I'm not sure Guinea will agree. I'm not sure Togo will agree. I'm not sure Côte d'Ivoire will agree, and other countries as such. And so that is going to be very difficult for ECOWAS at this particular moment. ECOWAS is also in a very in a dilemma because it also don't want more members to leave the community.
Right.
So it has to be very tactful in terms of engaging in these particular matters.
Let's wrap up on the early warning signs. Of course, you operate that strong group, perhaps, looking at what's been happening across the SAB region and what the indicators are for peace in countries such as the Ivory Coast, for instance. What's your early sign predicting, given what we're seeing now, and what would you want peace actors to do just to stem this in the tide?
Well, I mean, if you look at the history of the country from 1999, when we had the Civil War, to 2010, 2011, when we had the post-election violence, and 2020, and looking at what is happening today, I mean, the signs are clear that if preventive measures and management measures are not put in place, we are going to record some level of violence in the upcoming elections. And I mean, for us as civil society, we've been doing a lot of engagement with the political actors and citizens of the country. I think the other international partners who are also in the country engaging in all sorts of peace work and also peace building activities. I think that we need to see ECOWAS and the African Union and also the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel, UNOWAS, playing a major role in the country. Otherwise, what is happening is not good for the SAB. If you recall, I think a week ago or so, there were rumors of coups and all that in the country.
Yeah.
It tells you that all is not well in the country, and we need to step up our efforts in terms of preventive diplomacy and in terms of building consensus among the political actors to ensure that the October election is peaceful.
Dr. Festus Obeng, will keep watching the space, but grateful for your time here on Connect Africa. And of course, we're also paying attention to health tonight, where the World Health Organization is warning that global health aid is projected to decline by some 40%. This is and will be a big drop that threatens progress in health services worldwide, including the continent of Africa. Well, I've been speaking to the newly appointed Regional Director for the World Health Organization, the Africa region, Professor Mohamed Yacoub Janabi, who's been talking to us about how Africa can effectively secure a lifeline in the wake of this financial cuts. Professor Janabi, thank you for talking to Joy News. And we say Akwaba, our way of welcome here in Accra. How is it like for you, joining thousands and scores of actors across the African continent for the Africa Health Sovereignty Summit here in Accra?
Let me start first to say, bless your news media, Joy. It's very important for us. When I say us, I'm talking about WHO Afro, which we have 47 member states, as you know. So what is today, actually? Today it marks a turning point for Africa, health sovereignty. The Accra Compact, to me, is just not a declaration. It's a strategy. It's a statement that it has come, it's high time for Africa to take its own ownership of its health. Because the difficult truth is our health system for decades and decades has been relying on donations. So I think it's a high time now to be on the driver's seat.
Right. And allow me to also say congratulations to you because you're taking up this new role as the WHO Regional Director for Africa. That is happening just this year. So I believe you have your own vision for the continent, which we would explore shortly. Before we get into it, I just want to quote perhaps one of your words back to you when you took up this post. You expressed thanks for the trust that was reposed in you. And then you indicated that you would not, quote, let Africa down. How is that feeding into your vision for the WHO Africa region?
Oh, thank you, Blessed. When I said that, I really meant it. Meant it in the sense, you know, my vision was a healthier Africa, a more resilient healthcare system. And it came as a coincidence on my side. It came, we all know at the beginning of this year, what happened to our financial situation. Our big donors pulled out. So to me, it was two things. Either we sit down and cry, or we take it as an opportunity for our continent to take charge of our health. So in order to do that, you need a very resilient health care system. You need to invest on primary health care. You need to come up with innovative financing. And when I say innovative, not only innovative, but innovative domestic financing. Right. We have to look on our climate. We have issues with antimicrobial resistance. We have issue with local manufacturing. As you know, over 90% of our medicine and medical products, we import them. We have to be more ready with outbreaks because, as you know, I'll just give you an example of 2024. Yeah. We had 109 outbreaks in Africa. Yeah. So that preparedness, how to combat all this, it's a very crucial to me. So once we achieve this, it means we are going to be more reliant, and that's why today being here with Accra Code, with Sustained Initiative and Sovereignty is exactly what I touched in my vision and the priorities which I've just mentioned.
So let's get in a bit more into the priorities, because all of these challenges that you identify will obviously militate against your broad vision of improving universal health coverage across Africa. I was taking a look at the figure before our interview, and it appears to me that Africa is doing below 50% in terms of our UHC. How then is that determining your priorities now? And clearly, how is it spelled like for you in terms of your priorities as to your immediate targets, short-term ones, and what will happen in the long term?
My priorities still remain the same. What has happened due to this financial shift? Let me tell you globally what has happened to WHO. We are short of 35% of our budget, despite, so we have a deficit of almost $1.5 billion. Even after cutting our budget by 14%, now we remain at 4.27 billion. Now, once you have this, what we have decided to do, apart from the matching and mapping, we are restructuring. You know, at the headquarters, 25% of the staff have lost their jobs. So we have cut down on the directors by 50% almost.
And of course, be sure to watch that full conversation with Professor Janabi on all of our platforms, including myjoyonline.com, where we have a lot more stories for you. I'm Blessed. I will see you again. Bye for now.